Thousands of people in Lesotho remain at the risk of visual loss due to the lack of eye care services in the country. In this episode, we have a conversation with Thulo Mokete to discuss his history in optometry and the journey of Vision Clinic Optometrist and Contact Lens Center in Lesotho. The arrival of Vision Clinic in Lesotho impacted Lesotho greatly and helped citizens not to cross the border for world-class service. The expansion to the lab facility opens the country to the possibility of manufacturing more medicinal products and devices. Vision Clinic Optometrist and Contact Lens Center remains one of the precious milestones in the small Lesotho economy.
Welcome to this beautiful episode of The Big Talk. To discuss eye care in Lesotho. Are you a doctor?
That. I'll give you a brief history, summary out on what optometry is. Now, optometry started, the inception at the in America. Within the inception in optometry, the whole point of optometry was eye care used to be under the care of a person who had done medicine and then done ophthalmology from that point. So medicine is a degree that takes you between 6 and 7 years. Then after that, you then go through ophthalmology, which can take you anything upwards of 4 years to complete. Then when you qualify as an ophthalmologist. So you can imagine within that period of you being from high school to being a doctor to being an ophthalmologist, the number of people that join in, it to a point where by the time you get to the top, there's so few people who actually make it to that particular grade. So the number of the population within the world, Joanna, has been growing exponentially. As it grows, there is more need of people that need eye care. Now, those people that need eye care, at different levels. So this is when we can actually get people in to look at the issue of eye care. ACD ophthalmologists. Then the OD program started. Hi, Carla, Doctor of Optometry in America. So if you go on Google and then you say optometrist, the first thing that's going to come through is obviously the American aspect of optometry. And our qualifications is OD, which is Doctor of Optometry and so forth. So a lot of people have linked optometry with that title of a doctor. And indeed, some countries have other programs in optometry, such as Australia, New Zealand, and so forth. An aspect of it was actually Doctor of Optometry. In Africa, most of the universities that actually teach optometry, you qualify as Doctor of Optometry. Therefore, you're called doctor. Okay. So within that sphere, that confusion. Some are called doctors, some are not called doctors, and so forth. It has actually created quite a bit of confusion. So now I qualified in England, and in the UK, the system, South Africa, this is a much older system than the South African system, which is very new, but they actually took it from the UK. And where we qualify, we are not called doctors in that particular instance. However, I say I'm an optometrist. The next person will say they're an optometrist. It depends where they qualify. If they qualified in America, they'll be called doctors. Okay. Yeah, and so forth. So this is where you get in. There is a lot of confusion and so forth. The other thing is, for me in particular, it's a case of my father. He was an ophthalmologist. So people are used to linking the word Mokete with doctor. Okay. I've got 3 other brothers. They are all doctors and so forth. And so there is that association. As soon as people look at me and see me, then they start saying doctor and so forth. And I've tried to say, no, I am not. But it's been difficult enough for them. To a point where I've had an argument with somebody from the bank. I said, no, you are my doctor. You treat my problems as a doctor, so I am going to call
you
you
a doctor.
whether you like it or not. I am going to call you a doctor. So with those arguments going on and so forth. But that's the quick answer to your question.
Okay. Nalani, how in optometry, Dr. Mokete, sorry, and your education background.
Right. Look, for me, I started within the eye care industry. I grew up within the eye care industry. My father was an ophthalmologist. He went to private practice, so we used to help out with the filing, cleaning, and things like those during holidays and so forth. So I had an insight into ophthalmology, optometry, optics, and so forth. So haki at school Osaka, I then went on to the UK, where the first course I did was actually called optical management. It was a brand new course, because what they found was, look, there's always a business aspect to optometry, and all the schools, even up until now, the aspect of business is so little that they found that people, once they actually qualify, they struggle to open their own practices and so forth because there's absolutely no basis for it. So after completing that particular degree, which has a huge component of business, as well as ophthalmic content within, I then went on to do the classic optometry degree in the UK. Then from there, it was professional qualifications. Then I finished the professional qualifications. So the first one was done in a place called Anglia Ruskin right now. The second degree was done in Manchester. Then I worked in a place called Sheffield for a while. Then from that point onwards, the company that I was working for was bought over by another company, and within then I decided, all right, it's time to go home, simply because the role that I'd created within that company was a role where you had the owners of the company were American, and they were interested, obviously, in the financial aspect of things. Then you had the British professionals, optometrists, who were interested in the professional aspect of things. So the link between the two, I became the perfect link, because I could talk to the business aspect, then translate it to this end, then revert back with the professional aspect to the business people, and then create a bit of a balance there. But anyway, when that company was bought over, my role then finished. Then I decided, oh, I'm not staying on. I'm coming home. I have enough. Yeah.
Coming back to Africa.
Yes.
Okay. How would you describe what you do?
Look, what I do is, my son always asks, what exactly do you do? So my answer is, I bend light. I'm a light bender. So there's a physics component to that, okay? So what happens is you have an eye, as we have here. So I'll make it very simple. So for short-sighted people, okay, when the light comes through the eye, it actually focuses in the middle of the eye. So it doesn't focus on the retina, where it's supposed to give a perfect image. For long-sighted people, that image focuses behind the eye, which then it becomes, again, it's not very clear. So my business, or my job, is to bend that light to actually focus on the retina to give that person perfect vision. Now, it goes beyond that, because there's then the health aspect and everything else. You have so many mediums from the cornea up until you get to the retina. And within all those mediums, you need to understand what is happening at every single stage. This is from a child who's in utero, that means a child to an old person at the age of 100 years old. You need to understand every single aspect of every single layer from the cornea to the retina for you to be able to help those people properly. Okay, so then this is where the medical aspect actually comes through, because what happens with vision, you have the retina inside, but the retina is only part of the visual system. The visual system continues on into the brain. So my degree is optometry and neuroscience. Okay, so it was one of the few in even in Britain that was actually structured as such, because we understood that it's just beyond the case that we give you a lens and front and so forth. You have to have absolute total understanding of what happens from the view as from the light as it enters the cornea to the brain, how it actually interprets all that. So if anything happens beyond the eye, you need to understand where the problems are. That is in the brain. If you don't understand that, that's where you come short. And your job is just to give glasses. So mine is glasses. It is the health of the eye, and it also goes into the brain as well.
How did Vision Clinic come about, and how did you impact eye care in Lesotho?
Right. Look, Vision Clinic, as a concept from all what I've been through, and what I've been through, obviously, in the UK, all those many years I was in the UK, I worked for various companies. If I were to mention a few, starting from the last one, which would be Vision Clinic, Grand Optical, then Vision Express. Then I worked for Scrivens Optical. Bob Hutchinson was the owner of that company. So there's been a myriad of interactions that I've actually had. So all that information and the learnings that I had from there actually came together in the form of Vision Clinic when I came back home. Okay, so the point was, most people, when I got to Lesotho, which is over 20 years ago now, we're still getting their eye care services in South Africa. Okay, so my coming through to Lesotho was now enabled a lot of people to actually get world-class service in Lesotho, because what I was offering was not just what they were getting in South Africa, but a lot more. Because even in the UK, I was working in research, contact lens research, and so forth. So look, the experiences that I had there were able to actually help bring it all together for Vision Clinic.
What services are you offering your patients?
Yeah. Look, right now we offer patients quite a lot of services. As I said, we work on children that are from 2-3 days old up until people who are in the hundreds, if you like. So within all those spheres, there's different needs that you offer. Let's start with the children. With the children, you have kids who are born with problems that they got even before they were actually born. So you need to work on such problems. I will give you just an example, like cataracts. They can actually be born with cataracts. They can be born with infections of the eye. They can be born with muscles that are not working properly from that point. So we then work with other people to be able to resolve those particular problems, so that we can give that child as good a chance as anybody else in life. Because one of the problems that we found is you have a lot of children where the problems are actually correctable. However, the fact that they do not get the proper help then means we limit their potential in life. And by limiting the potential in life, we actually lose as a country. So eye care, very, very important for the future of the country generally. Okay, so now we're talking about other services, sorry. Okay. The other services that we offer, obviously, when we get to people who are slightly a little bit older, say in your teenagers, we do get a lot of people who are actually short-sightedness, which some people call juvenile myopia and so forth. So we tend to deal with that. Right now, there's a new program actually that we are actually part of, which is a world study of how to reduce the level of short-sightedness in these people, the teenagers, if you would like. Now, within teenagers, what we found in the past is that you would get them a lens, and then you seemingly would be increasing the power of that lens until they get a bit older. So studies have gone on to find out we can actually reduce the fact that you need to give them a higher powered lens earlier on by controlling certain factors of their vision. So right now there are a couple of children that are within that particular program, including my own child, where we are now actually monitoring the increment of power versus if they were not within that particular program. So the type of lenses that they use are specialized lenses, as opposed to just normal lenses that you'd actually give to the kids. Beyond that, then we have, say, people who are within their working ages, so from your 20s into your 50s odd. Within that, there are certain changes that happen, obviously. We make sure people now spend a lot of time in front of their devices. That's your computers, that's your iPads, that is your tablets and phones and stuff like that. We have to make sure that we make the people comfortable as they proceed with their daily activities and so forth. Beyond that, the other services that we offer is we've got a lot of people now becoming hypertensive. We have a lot of people becoming diabetic due to lifestyle issues, stresses at work and so forth. So we are part of the first line defense in terms of trying to identify some of those problems. And again, this is where it is important for people to go to a proper optometrist for their vision examination. As I said, it's not just a case of giving glasses. If you don't get proper examination, then the chances of missing such are very high. And by the time we actually find out, say you're diabetic or anything of that nature, sometimes we find it's too late. That disease has progressed to such an extent that you're now needing huge interventions. You're now needing to go for surgery. You're now needing, to stop certain activities and so forth. So those you need, unfortunately, you need instruments which are not cheap at all. So again, as I said, people who are just focused on issues of glasses and so forth, they would never go into that. So we have to invest quite heavily in the machineries to actually detect, monitor, and make sure that the diseases don't actually progress. So that is worked in conjunction with medical doctors and so forth. From that point onwards, yes, there's things like contact lenses that we offer. There's prosthetics that we offer for people who have had their eyes taken out, maybe due to accident, maybe due to diseases, because sometimes you do get cancer in the eye, and then the only way to actually deal with it is actually to take the eye out if it has started to metastasize and so forth. So from that point onwards, the various other services that we offer, including low visual aids. Low visual aids. We have people who are partially sighted. We have people who are blind. Okay, so you need to make a differentiation between the two. Some of these people who are partially sighted, some can actually their vision can be improved to normal vision, or what we call normal vision, with a pair of glasses. But sometimes it needs a lot more than that. You have to use things like telescopes. You have to use, things like magnifying glasses. You have to use other methods to aid vision. So you have people who are then classified as blind. They need to continue in life. They need to still function and so forth. So again, the devices that you give them to help them make their life as normal as possible is important. But you then need to understand what is causing the problem, what is the extent of the problem, for you to be able to give them the correct device.
Shift our focus to human resource. Because I do not have optometry programs.
Correct.
How do you recruit your staff?
Right. Look, I started on my own. So then it came to a point where it was just overwhelming in terms of the work that I had. Luckily, I sometimes go to school, then we give talks and so forth. And I think some of the other children did hear as we spoke. Some, their parents brought them, and we had general chat in terms of what optometry is and what they can gain out of it. But initially, the number of children who are actually doing optometry was very low, to a point where I now had to recruit from South Africa and employ South Africans to come and help out with the amount of work that we do. But I'm glad to say that now most of the people that we actually have are actually Basotho. And within that as well, there's not enough of them coming through in order to solve the problem that we actually have. So I think in a way there is an element of not taking the seriousness of eye care within the development of the country. Look, there were champions for something like that. My father definitely was a champion in that, in trying to recruit the ophthalmologists and trying to recruit, other kids to do optometry and so forth. So as we speak right now, there is very little in terms of that movement. So there are very few kids who are actually doing anything of optometry. So as I said, some of them is a case that the parents see, the parents bring them to me, I have a chat with them, and maybe that actually convinces some of them to follow that particular line. Okay, sure.
See you after the break. Welcome back to this beautiful episode of the Big Talk. Nzakazama island at Thulo Mokete to discuss eye care in Lesotho. Let me get 80% of blindness is preventable and treatable.
Right.
But in they're at the risk of losing their vision. How do we solve this?
Okay. The quick answer is those people need services to go to them, because most of them cannot afford to come to town for those services. If you can imagine that my time at work here starts from the morning up until say 5 or 6 o'clock, then I have to knock off and then go home to the family. So a person who's traveling from Basotho for services here, when they get out there and they find a long line of patients and then only can be served either late at 5 o'clock, where do they go after that? It's a problem. So for them, it's a case of you move from Basotho to Maseru, you need to organize accommodation, you need to organize transport, you need to organize all those things. So all those add so significantly to the cost of healthcare to those particular people. So the easiest way is for us to actually go to them. Then it makes it easier. We then get to see a lot more people. So we have a program that we have run literally for the last 20 years that we've been in existence in Lesotho with the Ministry of Health, where we do outreach programs with them. So the outreach programs, basically we go to the districts, we see patients, and then we come back to Maseru. And what we did in order to be able to make it accessible is, we need to give something back. Okay, so giving something back to the community of Basotho. We see those people free of charge. So it doesn't matter what kind of disease they have or whatever problems it is that they have, we see them. Then we give advice as to what is the best way to actually overcome those particular issues. And then from that point onwards, they and the family then take it up and so forth. So this is done, as I said, with Ministry of Health. Is also done with CHAL, which is a group of hospitals run by churches and so forth, still supported by government of Lesotho and so forth. So that part of the program, as I said, it is fulfilling, because as I said, most of those people would not be able to afford my services if I had asked them to come to Maseru. So for that, we go to them. It is costly, but as I said, it is a way for us to actually give back to the community and give back to Basotho in general. And at the same time, still trying to entice a lot of children to open up their scopes in terms of careers as well, because you do get a bit of sessions to do that. We do go to schools as well in the rural areas, talk to the children then obviously talk to their parents and so forth. So we do run a number of those particular programs.
Why has it been difficult for our government to integrate eye care into the broader health system?
Look, that is a difficult question for me to answer simply because I am not in government per se. But I would like to think that, look, the pressures that they are under right now, we have obviously things like your HIV, you've got bigger issues like hypertension, diabetes, and so forth. Concentrating on those major issues with morbidity factors then means that maybe eye care has slipped somewhat. But as I said, we are there as Bana ba Basotho to make sure that we help as much as we possibly can, just so that Basotho can get our services throughout the whole entire country. Yeah,
how do you see us manufacturing medical devices and medical products in Lesotho in the future?
Yeah, actually, we have a factory of lenses. We manufacture the lenses that go into your glasses then. Okay. And I think we'll invite you at some point to the factory just for you to have a look and for Basotho to actually appreciate the level of complexity and the machinery that we actually have for that to be the case. And this was born from the fact that, within optics, it's a small community, I'd say, within Southern Africa. It was controlled very much by obviously the white people in South Africa and so forth. And they still wanted to grab hold of issues like Lesotho as part of their territory, if you like. And they would then frustrate you from time to time on delivery of the product. This is where now we decided, no, look, I've got the expertise, I've been through, my knowledge is higher than most of them in any case in terms of the lenses, the designs and so forth. So in that regard, we decided we're going to have our own lab, and we do have our own lab, which is, as I said, quite sizable. So when you come through, then you'll appreciate what I'm talking about. So look, in terms of manufacturing of medical devices within Lesotho, I think it is very much possible. And I think for even Bana ba Basotho generally to start thinking a bit out of the box, it would be a good idea for you to actually show them like this is actually happening in Lesotho. Definitely is not impossible. The level of complexity, as I said, is very high. We have to order lenses. Some of them, we order them from Japan direct, we order them from India, we order them from Germany, and so forth. So we see a patient here. Usually the patients with very high corrective strengths that we need to sort out, then we have to import those from those particular regions and so forth. So we work with manufacturers with the latest possible technology, so the help that a child in England will get, the same child will get it in Lesotho and so forth, and we go direct to get that.
About your most memorable client.
Okay. I have a lot of those. But I suppose my most memorable client is a 6-month-old girl who came through with her mother. The father worked in the mines. So she had congenital cataracts, which means she was born with a cataracts. Now, cataracts is a clouding up of the lens inside the eye, so she could not see. So in order for her visual system to develop, and again, I'll just say the development of the visual system happens from the development of the eye up until the child is about between 6 and 7 years old. Then after that, we can't change much. So in order for that system to develop, we had to make sure that the eyes actually get the stimulation that they need. So the child had to go for surgery. The cataracts were taken out. Then the child had to wear glasses. Now, the father decided, no, my baby is not going to be wearing glasses. So I told the mother that, look, there is no way. If we do not get this child glasses, the child's vision is not going to develop as it should. And the reason it's not going to develop as it should is simply because the stimulation is not going to be sufficient enough, like all other children. So I convinced the mother that we will go ahead. Never mind about the money or the payment of the glasses at this particular point in time. We need to get this child the best possible vision. So we examined the child. Child was happy. Child was well reactive and so forth. So we made the glasses, but I insisted that the father's child, must be there when the child wears the glasses for the same time. So the father was still quite resistant on this issue of the baby wearing glasses, 6-month-old baby wearing glasses. So the baby came through with the father this time around. So I insisted the father had to hold the baby. Then we had to put on the glasses while the father is holding the baby. So we put on the glasses there, and all of a sudden you could see this huge smile from the baby. And when I looked at the father, you could see a tear drop from the father's eyes there. So that is my most memorable patient, I'd say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. For your time.
You're welcome.
Television and Big Talk, and thank you very much to our viewers. See you next time. Thank you.